The road to Scottish Summit starts here. This is the Power Platform Podcast. Join Rex de Koning, Ana Inés Urrutia de Sousa, and Paddy Byrne as they talk to the Microsoft community about their stories.
Welcome to the Power Platform Podcast. My name is Rex de Koning, and tonight we are with
me,
Paddy Byrne. I'm Paddy Byrne. I'm co-host of the Platform Podcast.
Wow. Where are we today, boys? Are you just getting this right? So let's take it from the top. We've got Rex, Paddy. Yeah, we got the wrong order. As soon as I turn up, it just all goes to top.
Yeah.
That's fine. I am Mark Christie. I am replacing Anna today because Anna has damaged her finger. The pictures that we've seen, it does look like the mandible claw that she's got on to replace the... I'm actually, you can't see on this visual medium, but I am looking at a picture of a dodgy finger like the mandible claw. So, yeah, Mark Christie, hi. And we are joined by...
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Ru Campbell. I'm a Microsoft MVP for security, and I'm here because, well, number one, it's just good to join you guys. And number two, because I'll be speaking at Scottish Summit later this year.
Awesome. So we're going to kick off with an icebreaker then. Is that how we do this? I mean, you are going to just have to keep me right here because...
That's how we do it. That's how we do it, Mark.
Yeah. Right. So I believe you know our friend Danhausen. That name rings bells.
Yes, of course. Very evil, very good.
Yep. So you also have like a death metal beard as well. So am I putting the two together? So if you had the choice, what would be your wrestling theme?
Oh, that's a good question. Holy moly. There's so many. I probably Autopsy. Any song basically by Autopsy. Death metal out of Florida. Brutal, disgusting stuff, but that's where I'm going.
Okay,
also, I got
listening to that, I think.
I got the death metal beard, but I don't have the death metal hair anymore. I got my hair cut just a few weeks ago, so kind of half measures here.
Oh no! See, I've not come across them at all, so I will have to have a little look at them.
I'll tell you this: there's a song by Autopsy called "She Is a Funeral," and it's like if anyone comes to me and says, "What is like the death metal song you need to listen to?" I'm like, "That is it." Because I don't know, there's just something about it. It's just it's disgusting and it's gory and it's nasty and it's just the one.
She is the funeral.
I've got a follow-up icebreaker that's just sprung to mind talking about disgusting and gory. I don't know, we might get banned for it. We might get banned for this, but it's sprung out of my mind and I can't not say it. So we also heard that you're a cat lover. And you just had a new baby. So what would you rather chokeslam, a cat or a baby?
So either way, I'm getting the animal protection services or the child protection services coming after me at this one. This is how people get cancelled. We're in 2024 here. But I've got an answer, right? I guess I gotta go with a cat just because, I don't know, it's cats have always got that little evil streak in them, you know what I mean? So I feel like I'm somewhat justified there by since I never thought I'd say chokeslamming the cat.
The cat also has 9 lives.
There's no right answer there.
No right answer.
So for me, like when you say that is like if you were to describe a death metal song, that's one you would go for. So a band, me and my partner have seen them twice live now. Lorna Shore.
I know the name. I've never listened to them.
So Lorna Shore, have a little listen for them. This is the Hellfire.
Okay,
that's the one to go for. I don't think that would be my entrance music, Paddy. We figured that out last time what my entrance music would be, didn't we?
We did.
Was it not AFI? Something AFI.
AFI, yeah. We also talked about your finishing move, so that was my next follow-up question, but I got distracted by the choke slamming question.
That is the finishing move then.
No, we talked about Choke Slam. So yours was AFI, and your wrestling name was just Mark Christie. Well, so about you, Ru? And then we talked about a finishing move, and it was the classic DDT. So what about Ru? What would your finishing move be?
It's completely unoriginal, but I just got to go with a stunner because, again, I just go back to when I was a child and growing up and Stone Cold was the only thing that mattered. So, plus it's the one like I remember when I was like, when you're a kid and you wrestle on your trampoline, I was always the tiny one, so I couldn't do any of the I couldn't lift people up or anything like that. So stunner stuff like that was always a safe bet.
I don't know how many stunners my little sister took over the years.
I've took a few stunners. I've never done a stunner, but I've took a few. In first year Union Freshers Week, there was a stunner sort of thing going on, and you just come back to the bar, be like a round of drinks, and then it'd be like from out of nowhere, not from out of nowhere, that's their cool. But you just get like a boot in the gut and stunner.
Love it.
So, Paddy, I don't even know if I've shared this one with you or not. Did you know that Matt Beard is a trained wrestler?
I didn't know.
Matt Beard has. Really? Yeah. Matt Beard's a trained wrestler. He's worked on shows as security and everything.
No, we did because we did a full podcast show on.
We did back in the day.
Yeah. I knew he was doing security and things like that. I didn't know how fully trained he was.
Yep. So there you go. What's the? I mean, this is just turning into a wrestling podcast.
That's good as me.
What's your favourite event that you've been to wrestling wise?
That I've been to. I was all in Wembley last year.
Oh yeah, so
that might be. That was great. That might be there. I don't know. Clash of the Castle, which just happened. That was really good, purely for the energy. Well, the ending I got to admit, the ending, it's like, there was a whole bunch of signs that said, if McIntyre loses, we riot, and then nothing happens, which is just like, of course. But no, I got to say, All In was probably good just for the experience surrounding it. And I've been to a couple of WrestleManias as well, but I'll be honest, in fact, no, I know what it is. I was at the NXT Dallas, which was the first night that Nakamura debuted in NXT, and that had a killer card. It had Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. It had American Alpha versus FTR, or sorry, they weren't called FTR then, they were called The Revival, right? Just stacked top to bottom and a hell of a lot of energy. So I'd maybe say that was my favourite one, actually, that NXT show.
Yeah. I've got a weird one as well. So Mania weekend a couple of years ago, when it was in Dallas, it was actually the Ring of Honor show. So it was a 2 out of 3 falls, the Briscoes against FTR. And then
yes.
Mania the next day was the Cody Rhodes re-debut. Nice.
That's cool.
So, but I genuinely think the Ring of Honor show with Joe Hendry, say his name, we have to get graphics. He appears somewhere.
Of course, no. I love that. This really is turning into a wrestling podcast, but I love that FTR versus Briscoe series. I thought that was some of the best wrestling you'll ever see. And tell you what, speaking of Ring of Honor, we did the last WrestleMania that was in New Jersey / New York, and we got to go to the what did they call it? G1 Supercard, I think they called it, at the Madison Square Gardens. And the card wasn't so great, but just being in Madison Square Garden, being surrounded by that history, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I managed to get to the old ECW arena.
Oh, no way. Cool.
For a concert, though, in this moment. It was a gig, so I never got wrestling there, but just to go to it was quite...
Is that the Asylum or something it was called, or is it changed names or something like that?
What was it now? It's it's not the 2300, that's a Philadelphia one.
Is this in New York? The Hammerstein Ballroom?
That's at Hammerstein Ballroom, that's the one.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is just literally 10 minutes from MSG.
Yeah. That's lovely. Love it.
So what we do is we need to get you, because there is the no, it's not the New Japan tour. There is a tour in Edinburgh in like 3 weeks from one Japanese and I will find it by the end of this podcast. There is a show in Edinburgh in about 3 weeks, and it's got some decent people on it.
Right,
So,
cool.
So we might end up with a Scottish Summit one.
Did you go to the when Ring of Honor did like kind of back-to-back years at the what do you call it? The Corn Exchange in Edinburgh?
Exchange, yep.
That was awesome. We got front row tickets every single time because it's just so goddamn good. That was a hell of a time to be a wrestling fan because that was just before AEW.
Yeah, I probably got pictures of the back of your head then.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We had been to that, and we went to some of the Discovery shows as well that had a lot of the New Japan talent.
Did you go? Because there was one with the Elite, and that was amazing. That was amazing. Like, because we just rocked up like 5 minutes before showtime, and you've got Kenny Omega standing there just like, do you want a photo? And it's like, hell yeah, what a photo. So, no, that was awesome.
So there was that one. What's the other random one that sorry, we're, I mean, who,
I was going to say, for those still listening, for those Microsoft Business Application professionals still listening to the podcast,
here's how you build a power app with wrestling.
Yeah.
or here's your security. Right, okay, we'll let you get on that.
We'll get back to wrestling. I'm sure we will, because I'm a wrestling fan too. I like hearing about all this stuff.
Isn't that how the Power Platform podcast started in the beginning, with talking about wrestling a couple of years ago?
It didn't start. No. We did a full. Well, we went over. It was meant to be a 40-minute podcast. We went over like an hour and a half talking with Nick Coleman about wrestling.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a cat. It's getting slammed.
Yeah. Poor cat doesn't know what it's going for. There you go.
Yeah. So, Ru, tell us more about yourself. What do you do in your day-to-day role professionally? What do you do in the community? Tell us a bit more.
Sure. So when I'm not watching wrestling, the day job, I work for a company called Threatscape, who are based out of Ireland. We just won Microsoft Security Partner of the Year for Ireland, which was pretty cool. And we describe ourselves as pure play cybersecurity. So although we specialize in Microsoft stuff, we don't do kind of like, Teams deployments. We don't do app development, things like that. We purely focus on that security around everything, right? So whether it's in Azure, whether it's in 365, whether it's on-prem, that's the kind of stuff we specialize in. And since I joined Threatscape, we've grown from a team of about 3 or 4 folks to a team of 8 or 9 folks in our Microsoft security practice. So we've really grown the team. You guys will see this yourselves. It's that security since the pandemic in the cloud area has just ballooned in demand. You know what I mean? It's everything and it's all encompassing. So a lot of demand for it, a lot to keep busy with, a lot to keep losing your hair with, but it's good fun. And I guess my particular niche personally is in 365 security. So anything to do with Entra, Intune, Purview, Defender, and kind of dipping my toes into Power Platform security as well lately. That's my little niche there.
Good luck with that.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a Power Platform podcast and everything. It's the security of the Power Platform is something that is, in my opinion, like so overlooked by normal security folks, right? We're so obsessed with email security, endpoint security, all that kind of stuff. If the Power Platform admin gets into the wrong hands, there's a ton of damage they could do and it would just slip right under the radar. So honestly, it's an area I'm not particularly hot in, but it's fun learning about it so far.
I mean, just the sheer amount of different connectors that there are out there. Like, there's so many different connectors. It just needs one person to click, yes, okay, let's go with that connector, and anyone can get any sort of data. So, looking at the right bins for the right apps and stuff like that is all good. It's something, as you say, it's a point that people don't really pick up on. It's here, admin, just have all the access. I've even had customers that are like, okay, what access do you need? Power Platform admin access. Oh, here you go. Here's a lot. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So,
Yep. It's a good point, and it's kind of like everything in 365, where it's wide open by default, right? And you can kind of do whatever you want. And on the one hand, that's really useful because it drives adoption, makes it kind of easy to get up and running with. Yep. But on the other hand, changing the security culture after folks have got used to it for years and years is quite difficult. And you mentioned connectors there. That's a great example where, like, out the box, there's nothing to stop someone in your company, putting aside development and stuff, there's nothing to stop someone going into Power Platform, going into Power Automate and creating some kind of flow that just says, whenever I get an email or whenever I put a file in OneDrive, just take it and put a copy in my own tenant over here. And the reality is nobody's looking for that. You know what I mean? It goes completely undetected by your antivirus, your SIEM, your SOAR, all that crap. You know what I mean? You could buy 100 tools, but none of it matters if you're not properly configuring the tool you've already got.
I was going to say, I use an example that I heard of, and this is a partner that I know of, and their sales director, they configured a flow like this low code, no code. This is years ago, a good few years ago now. Low code, no code. I'll configure a flow to publicly tweet about opportunities that we've won, and the sales director didn't know Power Platform, didn't know Power Automate that well, but he dabbled, and he did it when an opportunity was loaded rather than won. He forgot to amend the trigger. And that's so every time a new opportunity got loaded into Dynamics 365 for sales, it broadcasted to the world, we've won with this company. And I mean, that sort of thing happens. That's a horror story. But that sort of thing happens if you've not got the right security involved.
Please tell me it's who I think this was, Paddy. Please tell me. Is the surname a fruit? Is the surname a fruit? Yeah, is that person's surname a fruit? Right, it's not who I thought it was.
No.
Okay. that was cryptic.
I'm trying to think of people's surname that are fruit. Bit of a fruit cake, but maybe not a fruit. No, I don't think it's who you're thinking. But yeah, as well, but that's a massive opportunity as well for partners, and specifically Microsoft partners. So we've took it from a Power Platform point of view, right? So that's all I really deal with. And that's a huge opportunity for Power Platform partners and Dynamics 365 partners to sell a service to look into governing security within the Power Platform. But I suppose you're really well placed in the fact that you are a security partner who's now you've got the security knowledge, and now you just need to gain a bit of knowledge in the Power Platform to start putting in processes and ecosystems in place within enterprise organizations.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like we kind of, because I've worked for partners in the past where, kind of, what would you say, like your first focus is the productivity / collaboration side of it, like, your classic 365 apps and things like that. And then security gets bolted on at the end. One of the cool things about Threatscape is because we start with that security background and work backwards, it's like we kind of know roughly what the main forms of attack are. What are the paths that they follow? How do the adversaries think? So when we then learn the infrastructure and the apps behind it, it just offers us a different way of looking at stuff, right? And the other advantage of working with a pure security partner is it can be awkward at times, is a lot of the time you're marking other folks' homework, right? And that can raise difficult conversations at times. But on the other hand, it really helps because it gives you that impartiality, right? So Threatscape, we'll hold our hands up. We've got no problem saying, if you want to do like Teams telephony or anything to do with Power Platform actual development, we're not the right partner for you, right? But what we can do is we can get in there and say, okay, well, based on what we know results in customers getting compromised, are they doing the security side of it right? And that's kind of where we step in.
Yeah, do you think that like the same principles, like the principles of security, are they platform agnostic? Like, would you follow the same process, like developing a security process or remedial stuff that you would for different apps? Like, does Power Platform just fall into, right, we know security, we know how security works, we're applying that layer and that knowledge just into a different technology?
No, that's a bloody good question. It's not so rinse and repeat across everything, right? So the kind of, like if I take, for example, the fundamentals will probably still be the same. So one of the ones that I'm doing a lot of work with just now is Copilot security. So customers want to get Copilot for 365, and they're like, well, how do we know this is secure to turn on or whatever? And I'm kind of like, well, look, there's different parts you can look at it, but fundamentally look at what you can control, which is like, because it's a cloud-based service, the most important thing is your identity pane, right? So when folks are signing in, are they having to do strong authentication? Are you checking what device they're logging in, all that kind of stuff from? So in terms of securing Power Platform as a service, that's kind of consistent, right? That identity level of security. But what isn't consistent is just the navigation paths, right? And how the adversary can then use them. Those differ from service to service. In a way, there's just recurring themes, though, where you can look at things like MITRE framework, and they give you basically a rough idea of what are the tools and techniques that an adversary would use, and you can just kind of work your way through them and think, okay, well, here's what the bad guys are doing. What have I got in place to defend against those? So there's ways that you can kind of approach it from zero as long as you're familiar with other ways, but it's not so cookie cutter, copy and paste from one service to another.
Okay. Who's got the next question?
All right. So, we now have an idea what you do in your daily life. I'm not going to mention the words again that we started with, but but since we're also trying to do a little talk about Scottish Summit here, I understood you were involved in Scottish Summit in the past before. What did you do then? You were a speaker, volunteer?
Yeah, I was a speaker. So first time I got involved with Scottish Summit was, we were saying before the show, I've kind of completely lost track of time. And I'm looking at my watch just now as if it's going to help me remember this. Don't know why you do that. But I think it was 2022 was when I did my first Scottish Summit, and I did a session on information protection, so sensitivity labels and protecting data in transit and at rest and all that kind of good stuff. Did that session, first ever in-person speaking thing I've ever done, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome. It was one of the things I liked about Scottish Summit compared to other conferences was the span of it, I guess, insofar as I go there as a security person, but you get Dynamics people there, you get low-code people there, you get email people there. You know what I mean? You kind of just got all these different types of techie there. So I kind of like that, and I like the networking side of it. And then so this year, I'm going to be doing a session that's called Becoming... It would help if I could remember the name of it. It's called Become a Entra ID Security Black Belt in Less Than an Hour, which just rolls off the tongue there. But the idea behind this session is basically anyone that's got 365, anyone that's got Power Platform or Azure or Dynamics, any of these Microsoft Cloud services, you've got Entra. But like with everything Microsoft Cloud, it's wide open by default. It is horrifically insecure by default. So there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. And the idea in this session is just spend, 40 minutes with me and kind of just, take you by the back of the head, dunk you in security and pull you back out, and all of a sudden you'll be a whole much better at it. That's the idea anyway.
So that is Friday, 11:20, meeting room 8.
That sounds pretty awesome, yeah.
That sounds brilliant. See, that sounds like something I needed 2 weeks ago, because I'm an architect on a project. And I don't know a lot about authentication, and I know bits of Azure, but we're doing some portal work, and we're replacing a pre-existing portal, and we have to configure SAML authentication, and not a lot of Power Platform devs, consultants know about SAML authentication, and so we're a bit resource short, and I had to literally dig away for hours in my spare time, try to find out about how to configure SAML authentication on an Azure B2C server, and even find out, and just like, I don't know yet, but I'm trying to find out about edge providers and things like that, and it sort of dawned on me like that this is a massive gap in my technical knowledge. So, like I said, your session and your workshops would have been brilliant for me, like if they were 2 weeks ago and not in October.
Yep, 100%. I'm about to say it, and I hate saying it because it's one of those things. you hear it so many times that I got to the point where I was like, if I never hear someone say this again, it'll be too soon. But there's the meme now that identity is the new security perimeter, right? And where that comes from is back in the good old days, the network was your security perimeter, right? Everyone sat nice and tight behind a firewall, and your apps sat on premises and all the rest of it, and you'd connect by a VPN, and the network was what defended your stuff. Whereas now the idea is it's identity. You know, if I have anything that's in the cloud, the weakest point is almost always my identity stack, right? Because all I have to do is compromise your account, and if you've got highly privileged access, well, now I own you, right? That's the kind of point there. And so it doesn't really matter what you're doing in IT. If you're developing, if you're doing engineering, if you're just doing comms, stuff like that, you still need to know about how to secure that side of the environment. And Entra is so big and so complicated with so many different things going on, so many weaknesses, so many gaps that you can just kind of put your finger in and tear apart, that it's almost becoming like for a lot of my customers, it's like a full-time job. You know what I mean? They'll have just identity engineers, and their whole job will be just spend around kind of figuring out, okay, well, is my Entra secure and all the rest of it. And a good example of the kind of thing we're seeing there is, and this may be consistent with what you've seen when you've been developing these kind of work with like Entra BTC and things, is it's the whole story of like supply chain security as well, right? So for example, with Entra, if you're developing an app, you could say, okay, well, the app I'm developing, it's going to create items in your calendar, so I need permissions to your tenants' calendars, right? And it's like, okay, cool, right. I, as the customer, will give you, the developer, permission to my tenants' calendars. Well, all of a sudden now, I need to now be concerned about your security as the developer, because if you guys get owned, all my calendar entries get owned, right? And when some of this Entra tenants we work with, you know, they could have tens of thousands of different Entra apps in them. And all of a sudden that's 100,000 apps that are supply chain weaknesses in your environment, right? So it almost, what would you say? You could almost lose sleep over it, right? Just the kind of the potential for disaster that just sits there.
I mean, I've literally just logged in and I'm starting to delete any contractors that we've ever had in our system.
I love it.
Is that me going then, Mark?
Paddy, you're not even there.
Oh, there you go.
I'm glad you saved that, because I realised I was live on a podcast and I shouldn't.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, no, but I'll tell you what, that's a good point. And one of the things I will be doing in this session is talking about how you can automate stuff like that, right? So, say for example, because I'm an external consultant. Say for example, I have guests coming into my tenant, external folks coming into my tenant, or even just temporary staff, stuff like that. One of the cool things you can do with Entra is you can automate a lot of that life cycle. So, for example, when the consultant or when the contractor ends, ping me an email, and then I can have to reattest, do they still need access? And I can just hit a button that says yes. Or I can automatically say, well, you know what, clear down all their access and delete it after 60 days or whatever kind of criteria I want. So Entra does provide a ton of tools to make the job a little bit easier, but it's still a bloody tough job to begin with.
Yeah, I can see myself being here for a while. No, it's one of these things as well. Like with the event, as you mentioned, like it's not just Power Platform, it's not just Dynamics, it's just not security, it's everything. So even if you're not in security, if you're at like an enterprise architect level, like Paddy was mentioning there, you need to at least know the fundamentals. You need to be able to talk about it confidently. So being able to go to a session like yours means that you'll be able to kind of talk about it. Maybe frighten people enough to buy some stuff as well. So
that would never be my goal. You know what I mean? That's of course not. That's it's funny. We well, I'll tell you what, just jumping with this. It is one of the kind of things you kind of have to contend with when you're in the security space. Is it's like, you don't want to be an ambulance chaser, right? You don't want to be like, and scare people and saying how bad things are so that you're kind of intimidating them into buying your kind of professional services. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and if you ain't spending the time doing it right, then you will get hit eventually.
Yeah, so just come off, like at Proximal, we've just paid for and done an 8-month business development course, like how to sell. And one of the things that they were talking about was using people's fear and emotion to sell to them. Like, this thing is going to break, or you're not going to have access, or all your data is going to get stolen. Using that as the crux to actually make the sale is actually a known technique. It's not how I like to sell, but there are ways that obviously make sense. Like my old man, he works for the NHS. They've just spent something like 8 billion after that last leak trying to fix stuff. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah. It's amazing how fast organisations, and I guess including the NHS in that case, can find the budget and the resources after the incident. You know what I mean? And that's kind of human nature, I guess, right? It's like sometimes we find with a lot of our customers, the reality is sometimes you need to put your hand on the hot stove before you know it's going to burn you. And we can do as much as we can to help folks before then. Because the reality is it's cheaper to do it beforehand, right? That's not always obvious. But after the fact, it starts becoming way, way, way more expensive because you've got to deal with containing and removing the threat rather than just preventing it. But it's human nature, right? We will kind of always procrastinate and think that it's never going to happen to us, but it invariably will happen to you.
So it was Mark to ask the next question, but you've already answered it and what your involvement is with the current Scottish Summit. You're doing a presentation. So we'll skip on to mine again. What are you looking forward to most about the Scottish Summit in October?
I guess just meeting folks, right? It's the whole community side of it. My team is spread across the UK, Ireland, and South Africa, and we got all the Irish and UK folks joining Scottish Summit. So we'll be ascending down there, and because we're a kind of a remote first team, it'll be the first time, I think. Have I even met everyone in person? I think I have. I think I met everyone in person, but it's very rare. So just meeting my team will be great. But then meeting everyone else is also great. So I know a few folks that are coming over from, for example, Belgium. The Story Cinema, he's coming over from Finland, so it'll be great to meet up with him. And just that in general, it's the folk that you know and you respect, getting to finally catch up with them. But then meeting other folks as well, right? That's always quite cool because, I don't know, it's just like, when you work in our little bubble, whether it's what I do or what you guys do, 99% of your life and your knowledge and what you can talk about, you can't talk about it with the normies, right? It's like if my wife jokes that she can probably have like a conversation now because she sits in the same room as me and she listens to code. Like she could wing a conversation. She could like start talking about Entra or Intune or something like that, right? But is the point is we've got our own little language and everything, right? And so just being able to be in that kind of community where you just click with folks, they get it, they got the same problems as you, they get the same frustrations as you. Quite often they get the same sick I'll stop there. They got the same sick sense of humor as you, all that kind of stuff. That's quite good. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to not having that. My partner is also MVP in Biz Apps, and it's just a nightmare because she won't shut up about it. So I have the
opposite. You're looking forward to talking wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We should do a part 2. We should do a wrestling podcast part 2 and get Ru along.
We should do, because we have collected other wrestling people as well. I mean, literally my whole bottom of my sleeve is all wrestling tattoos.
I love it. Nice.
So we've got La Parka.
Oh, yeah, nice.
The story about La Parka,
yeah.
He died the next day after this tattoo.
No way.
Genuinely died the next day.
That's creepy. Right.
What have we got? We've got... Yeah, so we've got Penta, we've got Santa Jericho, nice. Mick Foley, Rey Mysterio, and Jushin Thunder Liger.
Nice. So you're a big lucha guy, I guess, based on that. Very nice. Love it.
So there is space for Danhausen there as well.
You saving that one because you don't want him to die? Is that...
Jesus. That got even dark for me. Yeah. But no, yeah, there's space for a Danhausen. I think that is the next one on the list, I think.
Nice one.
So yeah, I definitely think a part 2 wrestling one, once all the Scottish Summit ones are finished, could be quite good, because it's amazing the amount of people in the community that do like the wrestling as well. So
it's one of those things that I think certainly over the last few years it's not been so bad, but there was quite a long time where with wrestling it was kind of like you kind of had to drop hints, smuggle it in there, you know what I mean, figure out, you know, you one of us, you know what I mean?
it's like the Carney, it's like
yeah,
Carney words and stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. I'll tell you what, random story. I was reading about a guy. Where did I read this? It might have just been Reddit or something like that. It might have been a Twitter story or something. And it's a guy who believes that he's been so engulfed in wrestling terminology that it's affected his life. And so the story goes, he's sitting in a meeting with his new company. He's just started. And they're talking about the business. And all of a sudden they start talking about someone who's just left the business. And they say, oh yeah, so Joe Blogs, you know, blah, 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 blah. Great person, but they went into business for themselves. And all of a sudden they're not here anymore. And this guy, the wrestling fan, he's like, oh, geez, that's shocking. Can't go into business for yourself. You know what I mean? Don't do all that. And they're just kind of looking at him thinking, what are you talking about? And of course, he's thinking, quote unquote, going into business for yourself means you start like actually, you know what I mean? Like working against people and doing the wrong thing and all that kind of stuff. Because in wrestling, of course, quote unquote, going into business for yourself means you start acting real, right? You start smacking folk about. But they're like, no, they just left and started their own company. Like, what's your problem? You know what I mean? But yeah, all these things have got their own little language, right? It's funny how that happens.
I think I would have popped if I had heard that as well, though.
Yes.
I even think during one of the keynotes, I actually said, and it was a good old Mick Foley one, like, we're going to be in Glasgow next year for a cheap pop. And I used the words cheap pop.
Yeah. You got to do the thumb and everything, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, funny you say that, I used the term cheap pop the other day on a Teams call. I brought the baby on the camera and everyone went, oh, baby. And I was like, hey, cheap pop.
You do that, though. I mean, I always try and, any presentation I do, and even if it's like a sales presentation or a professional presentation, I will always mention something about wrestling in there. So I'm more of a sports activity. But all my test data is all like real names of wrestlers rather than like the actual wrestling names. Yeah, the amount of times I've created a team with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and stuff in it, and I always present it, and then I always wait to see who goes, oh yeah, it's that thing.
That's a good idea. That's
my,
a good idea.
My own little in joke.
So I've done a full presentation in Finland with just Danhausen pictures on each slide. It was about field service, and it was talking about like if your data isn't good, you're very evil. Then a picture of Danhausen, and it was like literally every slide had a picture of Danhausen on it.
And did anyone click or?
Oh no, folk just think I'm absolutely mental. Like, who's this spooky golf?
I did it as well. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube, and I was talking about Power Platform icons, and I compared The Rock and Sting as icons within the Power Platform because they're both icons.
Nice.
And yeah, it's on YouTube.
Nice.
Rex is going to watch WrestleMania now.
I think I have to, because I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Well, I know Danhausen now.
I mean, I've just Googled Dutch wrestlers. I mean, yeah, Tommy End, I suppose, and Dante. You'll have probably no idea. They were a good tag team back in ICW days. Dante and Tommy End or Alistair Black. They were. I can't remember what the name was now, but yes.
He's probably the most famous one, isn't he?
I would say so. Although he did spend most of his time in Scotland.
Anyway, Anna's not here to do the hashtags. I was really wanting to do because we come to intros, we do the hashtags, do the URLs. But Rex, I was hoping Anna would go for a big gammy finger and do the hashtags, but she's not here today. So Rex,
yeah. So we're doing it just digitally now. It's on screen, and for the people just listening, it's hashtag Scottish Summit 2024. So tag us on the socials. Ru, thank you for being here, but we cannot let you go without you promoting yourself. So how can people reach you?
Sure. So you can get me on Twitter at RuCam365. You can get me on LinkedIn. Just search for Ru Campbell. Not many of us about called Ru Campbell, so just look for the one with the beard. Blog, campbell.scot. I got new courses out on LinkedIn learning about Defender. I got the monthly M365 Security and Compliance user group. You can find that on meetup.com. Threatscape on YouTube. And I'm probably forgetting to plug something else, but that'll do it.
Thank you very much. All right. Anyone has some things they want to mention still, or?
Well, I've got lots to get off my chest, but this isn't the platform I pay for therapy. Thank you.
Then I will just say, if you go to scottishsummit.com/tickets, you can still buy tickets for the event. There are also still tickets available for the pub quiz, cabaret show, and there are also some tickets left for the workshops. So get them while they're left. And we all hope to see you in October in Aberdeen. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Bye.
See ya.
The road to Scottish Summit starts here. This is the Power Platform Podcast. Join Rex de Koning, Ana Inés Urrutia de Sousa, and Paddy Byrne as they talk to the Microsoft community about their stories.